as we all know, learning is a continuous journey. You have to constantly upskill to stay relevant and so on. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the things you learn on the job?
Yes. So essentially, data science is like a very huge field. You will have different tasks every day. Some days you might want to automate a process. Some days you might want to work on big data. So it depends on the multiple hats that you wear. Again, some days you will have to kind of go out of your way to understand different business problems. So essentially, what I do best is I just go with the flow. Whatever is given in front of me, I kind of pick that up. I kind of hustle around with it. Recently, I was working around with a package called as Helium, which is say built on top of Selenium, which is used for automation. Now, the essence is before you even build models, you have to automate a process to create models every day. Not having like a standard data structure kind of say deviates the whole process of creating a model. So that is where I was learning Helium recently. So yeah, I mean, I kind of keep learning different things. So as and when there is a requirement, I kind of pick that up and I kind of hustle with it. I struggle with the problem. So a lot of people that I've kind of taught, there's one thing that I've noticed is not a lot of people have that energy to struggle with problems. I believe that is like a one big thing that I learned at FlexiLearns, that it's okay to struggle. It's okay to spend time when you're stuck somewhere, but it's not that cool to kind of give up if you're facing some difficulties.
Understandable. It's a very good life lesson also. So tell us a little bit about, when and how and why did you decide to start a YouTube channel?
Yeah, so it was around, if I'm not wrong, it is around September or during the batch itself, during the sessions, I kind of picked up this hobby of writing blogs. So I remember writing a simple blog on trying to solve the mystery of what true positive means, true negative means, and false positive and false negatives. These are like simple terms in terms of how do you identify how much good your classifier is performing. So I wrote a simple blog and I caught hold of a software that could record videos on my laptop. This is just something that happened accidentally. And I created my first video, which was like a very shabby version of what I create today. But it was a good starting point for me. I recorded the video. I just went through the blog. So if anyone who kind of visits my channel would see, the first video that I've created is mostly like a walkthrough of the blog that I have written. The audio is not proper, the content is all around the place, but that was like the starting point for me. After that, whatever little I kept learning, whatever say on the job or on the whole trajectory of learning data science, whatever little I kind of learned, I wanted to keep a placeholder wherein I could refer that say video or content again from any part of the globe. So YouTube is accessible everywhere, and the whole journey kind of became very simple for me in terms of, or I started enjoying the process of creating videos. That is how I started with the YouTube channel. I mean, it's grown leaps and bounds. I didn't expect it to grow so much, but yeah, I mean, it's doing really well in terms of the views it's getting, the appreciation it is getting. So yeah, that's how the whole thing started. It was more of an accident and nothing planned as such that I kind of thought and kind of executed.
Right, but I mean, your YouTube video, I mean, channel is doing so well. The
Yeah.
videos are striking a chord with people because that's the content people want to see.
Yes.
So, is this or are there any other factors that have motivated you to mentor students? Because you are a mentor
Yes.
for aspiring data scientists.
Yes. So I started my teaching journey, so to say, during my masters. When you're doing a masters, you essentially, if you have to make some, say, stipend during the stay and during when you teach during masters, that is the time you get paid every month a small amount. So it was then that I started teaching. That was the first time that I started teaching, and a couple of or a few people from the say the batches that I taught, say power electronics or some different subjects, they came up to me and they told me that you're really good in terms of teaching concepts and making concepts very clear. So I had this in the back of my mind that I have that knack of teaching that was already existing. Even at Cisco, I remember I used to give, say, I used to hold small discussions, although I stayed in Cisco for a very small time, but I understood the concepts of say protocols like multicasting, and I used to deliver sessions for my team. So I always knew that there is a knack of me wherein I'm good at teaching, good at simplifying complex, structures or complex algorithms. So that was the whole basis. Was it was an accident clubbed with a strong point that I have, which is to teach. So that is why I kind of took that forward. It takes good amount of time. It consumes a good amount of time to create videos, but I enjoy the process thoroughly. I mean, there is nothing that I don't like about the process. At the end, the total comments, the total likes that I get kind of motivate me to create more videos on machine learning. And yeah, I mean, that's the whole journey of how I create videos.
Okay, so that's amazing, by the way. I mean, our mentors are a very big part of the Creatum ecosystem. So, okay, next. So the journey to 40/40. Congratulations, it's a
Thank you
huge
so much.
honor,
Thank you.
and we're really excited at Creatum, for your achievement. So,
Yeah.
what did it take for you? What generally does it take to make that grade? For being recognized?
Yeah. So I kind of so there are a lot of factors that contribute to people being selected as a 40 under 40 data scientist. For me, one of the driving factors was my open source contribution with respect to the videos that I create. So again, a lot of things that kind of say went my way were contributed to the content that I create, to the reach that I have through the content that I create, and also the work that I've been doing at my organizations with respect to machine learning, deep learning, and the different things that I've picked up on the way. So I've also reviewed a couple of books with different publication houses. I've reviewed a couple of books on machine learning, on ensemble learning as well. And looking at the contributions that I had made so far, when I was nominated by one of my colleagues for the 40 under 40 data scientist award, then the selection panel kind of evaluated me on on different parameters, such as the open source contribution, such as what is the overall impact of the work that I've done in terms of business, in terms of returns on investment that is made on machine learning. That is how I could kind of go through the whole process that was there.
Okay. That's really something. All right. So now we go on to like the real meat and potatoes of this entire webinar is the
Yeah.
thousands of people who want to transition to data science. Firstly, should they find a mentor, sign up for a course? What is the first step they should take if they want to go into data science?
So for me, the first step that I would, so every time that I recommend people picking up data sciences, how good you are with respect to mathematics, understanding mathematics. Everything can fall in place if there is an interest to learn mathematics, if there is an interest to understand what you're doing in terms of mathematics. A lot of times in the current organization that I work for, I kind of interact with my boss more in terms of statistics than actual code, or we don't even discuss about a lot of the coding practices which are there. So the discussions are mostly centered around mathematics. So if you like, or if you have a knack of say understanding mathematics, have you have a liking towards statistics, that is what is going to drive you in the long run in this field of data science and machine learning. So the first and foremost step that I can think of is that having that understanding and having that liking towards mathematics. For a lot of people with say 5-10 years of experience, I know it's difficult to say again go back to the roots and say that I really liked mathematics at one point. But if you're willing to put in that set of effort that is there, which goes behind you making that transition, I think it is a good step to make in terms of joining an institution as well. The reason being, there is more say collected energy that goes in. You have multiple people with the same aim of transitioning into data science. So the first question that I'll always ask anyone who's making or is thinking of making a transition to data science is mostly how good or how comfortable are you if you're thrown with mathematical equations. If you have that knack of picking it up, maybe not say immediately, but in some amount of time after some revision, then data science is really a good field for you to be in.
Okay, and the importance of an institutional learning because there is just that much content out
Yes.
there. So, do you feel that having a course is helpful?
Yes, I mean, there are tons of resources out there. So for every topic that you can search of, I mean, say for example, exploratory data analysis or a PCA like algorithm or anything of that sort. You will have tons of resources available, but what to pick out from where and where to start from, what's the starting point, how do you start with, say, a language first, or should you learn for Python first, or should you learn mathematics first? All of that is kind of, say, it comes into place when you kind of join an institution, when you have something that is channelized, which is, say, goal oriented as well. So yeah, I mean, joining an institution is always helpful in terms of learning data science and machine learning in a more structured way. The only thing that is there is the amount of motivation and the amount of effort the learners can put in. That is what kind of takes the whole journey forward.
Okay, and what do you think is the right temperament for becoming a data scientist?
The ability to, say, fail and then get up again every time. The whole process is really difficult in terms of, say, there are a lot of things that keep coming up. So today, if I'm using, so the going back to the automation task that I recently picked up, there's this famous framework called as Selenium that I was kind of using to automate a process in terms of data extraction and data manipulation. But one thing that I discovered is there's a new library in town which is built over that Selenium library, which kind of simplifies the whole process of, say, automating the process. So the idea is you have to keep learning. You have to be open to learning new things. You have to uh, take the whole, say, step one at a time, wherein you're okay. You should be okay to fail in this field because a lot of questions are still very much unanswered, but you should always be open to trying out different things and come up with, say, simpler solutions that may or may not work for you. So one of the main defining factors that I look in when I kind of start hiring for people is the ability of people. How good can you kind of, say, from a position where you're down and out, how much can you rise from that position and come up with a small proof of concept or a small MVP that we can showcase it to our business as well.
Okay, great. That's solid advice for life as well. Okay, and what skills should people build? The must-haves, good-to-haves. You've mentioned statistics and maths, but beyond that, technical and specific skills.
So technically, I would say if you are kind of aiming for a proper machine learning based role or a data science based role, one thing that I really recommend all of you to build is your concepts in terms of mathematics. Till the time you don't understand the algorithm end to end with respect to the mathematics, then you're just playing around with libraries and you're not doing a lot of good for the company as well. At the end, I'm pretty sure a lot of you would directly use the libraries, which is, there's no harm doing it because essentially they're created for a purpose for people to be using it. But when things start going wrong or when you're not having the right model, you should know what is going behind the scenes of that algorithm to understand how it is functioning and how you can kind of modify the whole, say, algorithm code to take it from there. So one essential skill that I always look in people who are making that transition is the ability to understand the mathematics behind algorithms, which is very important according to me.
Okay. Can you also, would you have any advice to, say, freshers, experienced folks, anybody about this transitioning to data science?
One of the advice that I can readily give over at this stage is start enjoying what you're doing in terms of data science and machine learning. Go beyond the hype that is there. I know there is like a lot of hype around in the market that it's the best job around. It is, but once you start enjoying the process of creating models or creating solutions that are making an impact, that is where you kind of start succeeding in the initiatives that you've taken in terms of transitioning into data science and machine learning. So don't think of it as a new career path that will give you a good amount of money. Money is like a byproduct of what you contribute to the organization. But essentially start enjoying the workflow of what you're doing using, say, data science and machine learning. As a hobby project, something that I've picked up recently and executed it is I've created a convolutional neural network for detecting braille characters, which is for people who cannot see, for people who are visually impaired. What I've done is I've created a small, say, model that extracts out individual letters from the transcript of the people who cannot read. So there is this language of dots, which they can kind of read directly by touching the transcript. So what I've done is I aim to create an Android app out of it, or create a Google Assistant action for that. So ideally, what can happen is you can just point your cell phone to that transcript, and it would kind of read or understand the language first, extract out the simple characters which are there, and then read it out in form of audio. So this is something that I've currently executed independently. This is not tied to an organization as such. This is more of a hobby project. So start picking up such hobby projects as well. I mean, that keeps you motivated in terms of doing different things which can make a significant contribution as well.
Okay, great. That's amazing. So, you have been an amazing mentor. Even people at Grey Atom keep talking about you're an amazing mentor. Do you have any mentee transition stories that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them. In fact, I mean, for people who have studied, or for the people who have taught so far, a lot of them have kind of reached out to me once they've kind of secured a job. A couple of them who have kind of entered the proper machine learning based roles in companies like Quantify, Fractal. A lot of them that I kind of mentored, they've kind of made the right successful transition from their previous software engineering role or a business analyst role to a proper data science or a machine learning engineer role. So yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of people who have made that transition. So yeah.
Any extraordinary stories from unusual backgrounds, just for the, so like you said, right, that people need to understand math. So
Yes.
sometimes we have people who come from very varied backgrounds, and they've absorbed the math, they've absorbed the Python and things. So any personal stories you have to share about those kind of transitions?
So I don't remember the student's name, but I think he was from an arts background, if I may recollect. He was in the HR domain. He was managing the operations for a company, and he had decided to do a course on data science and machine learning. So I was part of the initial discussion that he had before joining the course, and luckily I was the mentor for his batch as well. So I could see his transition. There was a good amount of struggle for him, because not coming from a coding background, you essentially have that feeling that will I be left out, since a lot of people in the batch are from the engineering background, or from backgrounds which have like a statistical base. Coming from entirely a different background, he did put in his bit of effort. He went out of his way. He used to go through different online courses as well. He started writing blogs as well. And suddenly one fine day he messaged me that he's kind of made a transition. He's working as a data scientist in a company. So yeah, I mean, that was something that was very special to me. From a entirely non-programming background to transitioning into a data science is like a very big achievement according to me. So he's put in his bit of effort as well. I mean, with all due credits to him, he's made like a very good transition of from where he was till where he is now.
Okay, that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
So, somebody who's looking for a job, let's say, what should they be looking out for, company wise, role wise? Any tips that you would have?
So ideally, when someone's looking out for a job, understand what the company is doing. Your alignment of what you want to do in that company and what the company is doing is very important. There are companies that are okay with, say, simple automation based tasks as well, and they would kind of classify that person as a data scientist. So it is all dependent on what you want out of the organization. What is your vision, or what is your take on what data science is and what you want to execute for a company, and try to evaluate what the company is doing in terms of data science and machine learning. Try reaching out to folks in the team who may or may not be interviewing you, but just get a hang of what the company is doing. Say, understand what their product is if you're targeting a product based company. If you're targeting a service based company, you try to reach out to people who can give you some insights of the projects that the company is taken up in terms of the services that they're providing. How much time do they allocate for research, if at all they're allocating some time to research as well? What are the different cutting edge technologies that they're working on? So a lot of factors go into deciding which company you want to kind of join. But the main essence is both the goals have to be aligned in terms of the organization and in terms of what you want to solve. If you are looking out for like a very high fundu ML based role and the company is okay with like an analytics or an automation piece, data science, then there is a mismatch that's gonna rise in some time. So it's okay to wait, but get that ideology match with respect to the company as well as your ideology that's there. So that is something that I would highly recommend everyone.
Understood. So this is from a candidate point of view. Now, from a company point of view, what do you've taken interviews like?
Yeah, yeah,
Both of you do hiring. So what
yeah.
do you judge when you interview somebody, and what should a candidate evaluate when giving an interview?
So essentially, I kind of hold a lot of weird ways. So I kind of conduct interviews in a very different way. Not the normal, say, 10, 12 rounds wherein I'm not yet sure if I have to hire someone or not. My idea is I have one face-to-face interview wherein I ask about projects that are mentioned in the resume. So one tip that I can give everyone out here is whatever you write in your resume is something that is very important. You have to basically own up to every project that you've mentioned. So if you mentioned a simple concept like term frequency and inverse document frequency, you should know or you should be able to defend what that algorithm is over a count vectorizer, or every bit of detail is what you'll have to understand and kind of give out the answer as well. So the basics, again, it all boils down to the basics that you have in terms of the clarity, in terms of concept clarity. So I look at concept clarity. I look at how much clear the algorithms are, say from a mathematical perspective as well. There's one situation wherein I had to create or I had to write my own outlier based algorithm or a time series based anomaly detection algorithm. That is the place where my mathematical skills were put to test. If I would have just been someone who is kind of say heavily reliant on libraries, then executing what I've executed so far wouldn't have been possible. So that is why one thing that I really look at in every person that I interview is his clarity in terms of mathematics of algorithms. Then I also run through a very weird round called as a Google search round. So I basically have a simple data set with me, and I want someone to manipulate that data set and bring it in a form that I want to consume, which is like a real business problem that I kind of hide some amount of data and I give that laptop to that candidate who's come in for a face-to-face interview, and I expect him to use pandas or numpy, the basic Python libraries, and to come up with that solution. It's an open laptop, open book, open Google kind of a test that I conduct. And for people who are unable to say solve it, then I don't go forward with them. But for people who are kind of quick in coming up with solutions using Google search, then I kind of happily hire them as well. So yeah, I mean, that's how I kind of evaluate candidates, because not everything can be memorized. There are so many functions in pandas, numpy that as at least at a human level you cannot memorize. So ideally, what you want to solve, that basis of the start point and the end point is what is defined by a business, and the end goal of what your business wants to achieve. What you decode in the journey is where your expertise of struggling with problems, coming up with solutions using a Google search. How effectively do you use code from Stack Overflow? Do you just copy paste or do you modify it for your use case? All of that skills is kind of evaluated in that Google search round that I do. So that is how I evaluate candidates.
Okay, that's a very practical. So your emphasis is really on whether somebody can take a concept and apply it. So its
Yes.
application is very important.
Yes.
All right.
One
And
more thing that I kind of recommend, and I've also realized this as well. I don't know if there are people from different companies who are a data scientist, say, watching or going through this or not. But ideally, what I really find a lot of people do is a lot of people say go through this simple concept of not having like a proper say not having proper direction in terms of where they want to lead this interview to. So say a lot of companies ask questions or a lot of interviewers ask questions which are heavily bent on what they know as compared to what the candidate knows. So essentially, I've always made this a point to keep the interviews in such a way that the interviews are such that I only focus on what the person has written in the resume, which he knows, and not what I know. So this is something that I always take care of in terms of conducting an interview.
Understand, because yeah, I see where you're coming from. Okay, so a last few questions before we move on to the participant questions. We've
Yeah,
received quite a few.
yeah.
What do you think are the factors that drive demand for data science professionals in India today?
One of the main factors that is driving a lot of demand is the data that is generated. So data is being generated from every possible source. If you think of an e-commerce company, then the e-commerce company's decision of launching new products is data driven today. Say for example, if there is a new product that is launched, then how is that product being, say, recommended by people who are using it? Is it actually a good product or not, is something that is formulated using the reviews that you collect from Amazon or the different e-commerce sites which are there. So essentially what happens is a lot of companies are making decisions which are data driven. So previously business was more of an intuition based say decision that people used to take, but nowadays even business decisions are backed by data. Running a simple campaign, running a simple marketing campaign, does it, say, add to my revenue or does it decline my revenue? All of these factors that are considered is essentially, say, something that is data driven now. So that is why the demand for a data scientist who can kind of play around with data, create data in the right format, and then come up with solutions is really essential in terms of driving business. So and considering the pace at which data is evolving, and say the data that is generated every second, like you'll have say Facebook post every second going live, you'll have reviews coming up online, so every second there's data generated. And for driving business now, you will need data to kind of come up with right say insights or right models to kind of say solve business problems.
Okay, great. Okay, now we've talked about a whole bunch about what we should do and what data science should do and so on. Are there any things that they shouldn't do? Like, what are the commonly made mistakes aspiring data science make when they're building their career?
One of the main things that I feel a lot of people go wrong is get carried away by a lot of things that are happening currently. So there's a good amount of research that's happening. So every day Google is releasing a new model in NLP. Then Microsoft comes up with a bigger model and says this is more accurate than this. Uh, there is good amount of research happening, and it's like a really golden time for people entering the field, because you have a lot of automation already made in terms of data science and machine learning. But essentially everything that kind of comes down at the end is your basics. So if people don't focus on the basics, like what a term frequency or a count vectorizer is, or what a X algorithm is advantageous over the Y algorithm, essentially people are just relying on, say, predefined packages, and there are chances that once that person is hired, he may not be able to add a lot of value to business as well. So my only recommendation is keep the basics going well. Focus on the basics, which is where a lot of people go wrong. If you don't understand simpler concepts, then there's no point talking about a neural network. So yeah, I mean, for me, what stands out is how good your basics are. Not every task is meant to be solved using a complex neural network or a complex convolutional neural network. Some tasks can help you achieve, say, higher accuracy or a higher metric using simpler algorithms as well. So it all boils down to how good your basics are.
So have a strong foundation is basically the thing. All right. Okay, so we finished with your questions for the moment. Now, a lot of people have written in wanting questions of theirs answered specifically to them. So I'm
Yeah.
going to take it from the top.
Yes.
We have one from Chinmay. He has two questions. The first one is the role of SQL underestimated for a data science job role? Many profiles, as well as most of the interviewers, have exceptionally high focus on advanced SQL, whereas not many programs offer exclusive SQL for data science program courses. Yes.
Yeah. So again, data science as a role itself is very diverse in terms of what the company expectations are. So before I kind of jump into, say, answer this, what I would highly recommend everyone applying for jobs is to go through the job description really well. Again, it is more about the alignment of what the company is executing and what do you want to execute being a part of that organization. So having that clarity kind of gives you an insight as to how the interviews are going to shape up. Coming to the question in terms of SQL, SQL is a very important piece of what you do in terms of data science, because till the time you cannot extract out data from a proper MySQL database or different databases which are there, you essentially don't have access to data, so you cannot build the fancy models as well. So SQL is an integral part of the whole data science journey, but again, it is not the only thing that is there. So that is why in terms of giving emphasis to the whole objective. So again, a lot of places you will find SQL say topics, or you will find a lot of places where you get SQL tutorials, or there are some sections in different organizations which cover SQL as well. But the idea is having that in-depth knowledge is something that comes with experience. It comes with practice. So ideally, if you can kind of put in your bit of the effort after having the start, is what companies are looking forward in terms of SQL understanding as well.
Achha. So, Chinmay has another second question. It's we've covered this a little bit before. If you can just summarize again. Almost all industry experts and academicians say that data engineer, data scientist, and machine learning engineer are three independent job profiles, with some of the work overlapping in transition. On the other hand, fresher job profiles expect candidates to be proficient in all three work areas. Why is that?
So the simple answer is the the idea is people are taking a risk for someone who is hiring for a fresher. He is essentially taking a risk on someone who has very little to no experience in data science. So ideally, he would want someone who has, say, a mixture of everything, so that he can contribute to the overall business in terms of deriving insights and deriving a return on investment from the whole experience. So ideally, companies are expecting a lot. I don't deny it. In terms of the expectations, companies are kind of increasing. Say, how do you kind of increase the total return on investment for even people who are just fresh out of college? So that's the reason why companies expect everything. But ideally, good companies that have the intent of hiring freshers would kind of evaluate a lot of good projects that you have on your resume as well. So ideally, yes, you are expected to know a bit of data engineering, because ideally, even if you create a model, that model is not of great use if you're not able to productionize it. So that is where your data engineering skills come in terms of DevOps, in terms of deploying the model, and in terms of data extraction as well. Not a lot of companies have like a separate data engineering team. So you are the one who has to make sense of data. So ideally, you will have to capture data as well. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that kind of gives a good insight of why companies want everything. But if you know one thing really good, and if you have like bits and pieces of knowledge of different other things as well, then you're good to go in terms of the company as well, in terms of the hiring process. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the next question is from Kriti.
Okay.
She says, in my understanding, people from different working backgrounds can do the career transition to data science. But what about people who have graduated long ago and have no proper work experience? What are their chances for them to restart their career in data science?
So, long story short, I mean, the whole idea is if you have 10, 15 years of experience, you would be like a very specialized person in terms of one domain that she's handled so far. So I'm assuming she has 10, 15 years of experience.
Mhm.
For them, the best possible route that I see with people with so much of experience is to think of data science and machine learning as a stepping stone in their current roles itself. So data science and ML is not like an isolated field wherein it's most centered around one field. It is kind of making an impact in healthcare, it's making an impact in e-commerce and the different fields which are there. So ideally, the best possible place or the best possible way that they can transition is pick up skills from data science courses, pick up skills from different channels, understand how algorithms can make a difference in their current job profile, and then try to kind of start showing impact to business using data in their current role, and then make a proper data science related transition. That is how I see the transition coming around really smoothly.
I see that. So to join data science integrate data science in their domain and then move on to pure data science thereafter.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. All right. Next question is from Sandhya. I'm looking out for opportunities after a family break of almost 10 years.
Okay.
Doing an online course which is quite comprehensive, but so much knowledge together is really difficult to remember. She's also doing some projects, but needs a lot of help from Google. How do I cope with the interviews?
So with the interviews as well, try to kind of bifurcate which companies that you want to target and what is the kind of role that she's targeting. Apart from that as well, yes, data science is not simple. I mean, it is overwhelming to have so much things given to you at once. So you'll have a mixture of statistics, you will have a mixture of coding, you will have a mix of creating algorithms maybe from scratch as well. Then you will have to work on data sets, you'll have to derive insights. So it's a multidisciplinary field that is there. So ideally, what you'll have to do is you'll have to manage everything out and try to pick out which field or which companies are more suitable to you, and then kind of make an overall say transition in terms of data science and machine learning. But yeah, I mean it's an overwhelming field. It's not something that is like a one go solution that if you do a particular course then it's more it's very diversified in terms of creating insights. So yeah, I mean, if she can kind of go through multiple courses, complete or participate on Kaggle as well. I mean, participate on Kaggle competitions, go through kernels. I mean, that is very good source of information as well in terms of how do you better model, create good models using the data that is there using say simpler algorithms. Go through the kernels itself on Kaggle. That is a very informative point to start off the career in data science and machine learning.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Aman Preet has three questions.
Yeah.
First one is, does a data science need to be a good statistician and then a software engineer, or is it vice versa?
Okay. So it's a tricky question, but I would say companies expect you to be good at both. For companies who are trying to derive business or trying to evaluate how good you are in terms of deriving business. So essentially, everything boils down to money. If the company is not making money through data science, then there's no point of having people in data science as well. So ideally, company want to see that return on investment that is there. That is where a lot of things that boil down to at the end is how much impact you can create. So for every company the impact is different. Some companies are okay with like a proof of concept or a business insight given to them or a regression model that is not even deployed. So there they don't expect you to be like super champions in terms of coding, but your statistical knowledge kind of gives you that insight that this feature for a defaulter model is very important as compared to the others which are there. So that is the place where your ML skills or statistic skills kind of override your say software skills. On the other hand, if you think of the software skills that are there, then there are companies that are kind of automating the whole data science workflow as well. That is where your data science skills are good enough. Your statistics, if they are like 19-20 as well, say 19 out of 20, then you're still good if you have like a good software engineering base. So your software knowledge can be used in terms of like a full stack developer as well. So companies would also want someone who can create models. May not be the most best accurate models which the person can learn over time, but he can help us scale that solution using that machine learning model in terms of your final output as well. So it again depends on the company, but yeah, I mean having a mixture of both of them is something that is advisable.
Okay. Amanpreet's next question is very interesting. He says, how can a data science deal with unreasonable management expectations?
So again, it's a very valid question. Every company has very different expectations from a data scientist, and people want to see the return on investments quickly, which is where there's a lot of gap in terms of what a data science expects or what a data scientist expects and what the companies expect out of them. So ideally, it is good if the person can start creating some proof of concepts, start pushing things from his end in terms of seeing the overall business impact. So every new feature, if the person wants to add, if there's any model that he can think of can add value, then essentially what that person can do is create a small proof of concept, say do an A/B test or create or start throwing out output from that model, start showing the overall business impact again through data is where you can kind of come to a reasonable understanding of how much this model would add impact to the overall workflow in terms of data science. So yes, I mean handling business expectations or management expectations is a tough thing to crack, but you'll have to figure out a way in terms of getting that right balance of uh, creating models and trying to justify what that model is in terms of business as well.
Okay. Next question. How important is it to add a context around data for a data scientist, or just having data sufficient for a data science to run his or her algorithms?
So ideally, if you have not understood your data, then you cannot even create new features. So ideally, data just as a whole is not very insightful, and ideally you won't want something to come out of that data. So adding context is really important. So I'll be very honest, and this is something that my previous boss used to say. He said this long time back that no one likes watching data. I mean, it's like a fact. No one enjoys having numbers on his shelf every day or having excels on his sheet. Can things become more automated in terms of deriving the right business insights automatically using data? So having that context of data, uh, delivering data as form of something which is actionable becomes really important. So even if you don't create like the most fancy algorithm, even if you don't use XGBoost or say boosting algorithms, can you come up with insights that can make an impact to business? Say for example, if I am getting a lot of ad revenue from Maharashtra, can I create advertisement around the state and then push it forward for making more improvement in business? So think of everything that ties back to your overall business. So how much of an impact does data create to the end business is what every data scientist goal should be.
Understood. Okay, so we have a question from Ashwini and from Ajay.
Okay.
How are data science and machine learning connected?
So essentially, data science is something that is like a bigger, say, field that encompasses your machine learning. So machine learning talks about mostly building algorithms. So all the fancy things that happen, that is, you have your research that is going around in computer vision. You have your good amount of deep learning models that are being open sourced day in and day out. All of this is something that is fancy machine learning, which a lot of companies are wanting to use, but they also want an additional bit of help from the guy that they hire, that is in data engineering. People should be able to extract out data. People should be able to create models on their own. People should be able to automate a process. People should be able to create websites. People should be able to create web applications out of the models that you create. So essentially, data science encompasses everything. You will have like a business analyst based decision that is there. You will have more of model creation activities. You'll have insight generation activities in form of a data scientist. Machine learning engineer focuses more on the research part. If there is an end-to-end research project that is coming up, machine learning engineer wouldn't care much about where the data would already be given to him. His job is to come up with the most scalable and the most accurate model that is possible at that particular point of time.
Okay. Several of the questions now, I'm guessing this is because people are working in these profiles. Ashwini is working in a support profile, I presume. Somebody else is a software developer. Nikita Soni is from software. Um, there is another software engineer as well, and there's a BI analyst who's Shubhada.
Okay.
And they all want to know how to transition to data science. Now, unfortunately, we are running out of time, so we can't take it individually. So, can you give a generalized approach to this?
So ideally, what I would recommend is again start with mathematics. One book that I really admired is there's this book called Business Statistics by Ken Black. A PDF is like very readily available, and you can purchase that book as well. Get the fundamental of statistics cleared, because that is part of every interview that you give, irrespective of the company, if it's doing some heavy duty work or heavy duty lifting in terms of software or not. Your business sense is very important, understanding the different domains which are there and which domain do you want to pursue your career in data science. Finalizing that. Secondly, finalizing your interest in terms of where you want to go. Are you more inclined towards computer vision? Are you more of a problem solver or a more of a generalist that is okay to pick up any problem as and when they come in? So the first starting point is to get statistics laid out well. Statistics is something that will help you understand all the fancy things that are going around in the market. Once the statistics piece is set up, then start going through Kaggle kernels, start participating on the different competitions that are happening on Kaggle. Understand algorithms really well. After you've done the statistics part, don't jump into the fancy algorithms like XGBoost, or they're really superb in terms of the accuracy that they provide. But what I would still recommend is, can you solve this same problem using a simpler algorithm like a logistic regression or a decision tree or a random forest? Can you understand and can you help business understand how an algorithm works? Because essentially for business, they don't understand the complex fancy mathematics as well. So you have to understand the mathematical part of the algorithms. Once you're clear with that, then you can start participating in different hackathons and come up with good ranks on there on that platform, and then kind of apply for jobs and then take it from there. So the path is not easy. I mean, I would be lying if I say it's very easy. But if you put in your bit of the effort, that journey would kind of become much more streamlined. So that is something that I can recommend.
Okay, so great, thank you. There is one question over here which you kind of answered in part, but it's a very
Yeah.
specific one from Rajesh. What are the top 5 ways or forums where an enthusiast or beginner data science person can work or take up side projects besides their full-time job?
Ideally, more of say me giving out platforms. Try to think of uh, things that you think you can make an impact using machine learning. Like since there is this big outbreak of coronavirus that's going around, can you there are openly available data sets as well. You don't have to go in for a fancy algorithm right away, but can you create visualizations? Can you create some say fancy visualizations that tell you or give you an insight of how that outbreak is happening? So try to come up with your own problems. I wouldn't even recommend any portal specific right now, because portals mostly have everything very structured, like a Kaggle competition or different competition places as well. Everything's very structured. You will have data in a CSV format, so you're not going through the pain of extracting data from a database. You're not modifying the data as well. So ideally, I would want people who want like one-stop solution to come up with their own problems that they want to solve in terms of say anything. I mean, I built that small Braille convolutional neural network which reads out their transcript. So you can attack different problems. There are different things that you can think of in terms of achieving using machine learning, or even say simple business analytics or visualizations. So yeah, I mean, I would refrain from giving out top five sources, but I would want people to kind of come up with innovative ideas to solve problems in general, not say specifically to business. So yeah.
Okay, something 3 people have asked for a similar. I'm going to club the question together.
Yeah.
Apurv, Sahib, and one more person. Yes, Siddharth has asked for a learning path for data science, mathematics, and other prerequisites. And Sahib has gone further to say, how should he start preparing for data science? He works on Tableau, SQL, Excel, and a bit of Python.
Okay.
Is there any full resource available? Because he finds resources scattered everywhere and didn't find all resources collated in one place.
So that is still gonna exist even if you kind of make that transition. Uh, Resources would be out of the. It would be scattered everywhere. So ideally, I cannot give you like a one-stop solution. If I find something like that, nothing like it. But ideally, what I can recommend is in terms of say understanding, in terms of learning different technologies as well. People will have to be open in terms of searching the internet well. Trying to so getting the broader concepts is one thing. That is the initial part that I can recommend, that if you're doing like an end-to-end machine learning say flow, then if you're stuck with say principal component analysis as a concept, then you should be open enough to explore 10 different blogs, 10 different videos, 10 different courses which kind of specifically teach that topic. And that's how you kind of diversify your learning as well. One resource itself is not going to be sufficient in this field. So the more you experiment with things, but it's good to get the initial base in terms of the main topics ready, and then start working on it and start say going through different content which is available online.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so Adil has a question. He wants to know whether internship helps.
It does. It does help a lot with the whole internship process in place. What you get is a very specific project in that 2 or 3 month duration as well. So I've had a lot of interns working with me. So with internships, you eventually have to give out good, say, work to them as well, because interns are like very young in this field and they want good motivated work. So you don't want like a business driven work from them, but you want something that would add value in the longer run. So essentially internships really help a lot. But before you even join the internship, it's good to understand what the company is doing, what is the end outcome of the internship, what are they trying to solve using your internship, say tenure as well during your internship tenure. So having that clarity in terms of what is being solved is good before you take up the internship. But any internship is good enough to start in the field of data science and ML.
Okay. And one last question from Nikita. We've covered this in the main thing, but any last like tips for the first interview?
So one thing that I would recommend is whatever videos that I've created is keeping in mind, like if you want to go through a concept quickly, you can go through my videos in like last 4-5 minutes. That is what I do generally if I kind of prepare for interviews. But have like a good set of notes prepared, which you can utilize as a last moment revision resource, and be thorough with your projects. Whatever you mention in your projects, if you are say not sure about a complex algorithm like support vector machine, don't ever mention it on your resume. So if you've used it, you should be able to own up to that say algorithm as well. So that is what I would recommend.
Okay, we have time for one last question. Sudarshan is asking, is there a freelance option for data science?
It is there, not very prevalent in terms of how much, because companies are a bit reluctant to share data just like that. But if you have good amount of experience in terms of data science and ML, because companies are dealing with people who will have access to their data, so essentially it's not as widespread as say how companies kind of say give out freelance opportunities for creating websites and creating like different solutions. But yes, freelance opportunities are there, not as scattered or not as prevalent as in software engineering, but they do exist.
Okay. I think we've reached our time limit.
Yeah.
Bhavesh, we don't want to take too much of your time. Thank you so much for this. Any last words you want to close up with?
No, I mean, I had a great time conducting this webinar as well. So thank you to everyone who has been a part of this webinar. I mean, it really means a lot because given it's a weekend, given it's like between 11 to 12, there's good amount of people who have turned up for the webinar as well. So a big thank you to everyone who has kind of participated in this webinar, and hopefully we'll conduct more such webinars going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.